The AFRIEXIMBANK, or the African Export-Import Bank, is an African bank that has been set up as a pan-African financial institution to fund, help invest, and resource and empower African business initiatives. The AFRIEXIMBANK is in just about every part of the English-speaking Caribbean, with the exception of Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica. We want to examine why it is not in Trinidad and Tobago. The African Bank's mission is to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification, and development of African trade, while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. This is a bank based in Pan-Africanism, which means that its number one priority is the empowerment of African people ahead of their nationality, the language that they speak, their religious culture or identity or gender or social class. The consideration for the AFRIEXIMBANK is that the clients, the customers, the members, the participants are African first. The AFRIEXIMBANK's mandate is to finance and promote intra and extra African trade using three broad services: credit, trade and profit financing, risk-bearing, guarantees and credit insurance, and trade information and advisory services. The African Bank, or the African Export-Import Bank, is a bank for African people. But when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago, it has been blocked. And information coming to us by a team of successful African businessmen who all support the government are angered by the fact that what would be described as a local white, Trinidad white or Caribbean white / Syrian business group has been connected with the headquarters of the African Bank in Barbados, and they stand to benefit from all of the rewards that are supposed to enter into the black community in Trinidad. So instead, the African Bank, which is benefiting African people in other Caribbean countries, in Trinidad we have a Syrian bank that has been put forth to stand in between the African Bank and the African community. A group of African businessmen came together and expressed concern about this in a letter to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. This group of white Syrian Trinidadian businessmen is called the CPSO, the CARICOM Private Sector Organization. And this is who stands to benefit, based on the information that has come to us, on the African Bank. The CPSO's leaders are Andrew Sabga, Mr. P.B. Scott, Mr. Anthony Ali. These are the heads of the CARICOM Private Sector Organization. Mr. Williams, Dr. Thackeray Driver, Mr. Derek Foster, Dr. Suresh Bihari, Ms. Sanjo, all local whites, local Syrians, persons in business. Who remembers Christian Mute, who was given so much authority over our economy and decision-making when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic? This is Mr. Mahfoud. These are the people who have been given the privilege to connect with the African Bank, which should be interfacing directly with African people in Trinidad and Tobago. It is a group of local whites and Syrians who are already as fully economically empowered as they can possibly be, with the undying support of just about all of the governments that we have had. They still want to take the last few crumbs to fall off the table and still put it in the hands of white people, while black people still put their hope and trust in getting a road paved, or a standpipe opened, or minimum wage increasing by a few cents on the dollar. Being tricked and deceived by broken political promises consistently and continuously throughout the generations for the last 6 decades. But the great Kwame Ture said, black visibility is not black power. And just because you see black faces in offices with titles and symbols and coats of arms, that doesn't mean that black people are empowered. So the group of African conscious businessmen who all support the government wrote a letter to the Prime Minister expressing concern about his support, as they saw it, for the Trinidad white and Syrian business group, the CARICOM Private Sector Organization. And in that letter, they said, "We write to you out of abundant outrage and concern about your stated support of the CPSO, which is making a much more pernicious attempt to dictate and control all economic activity in the Caribbean region." They said, "We are aware of its composition and ethnic imbalance. A careful review of the history and structure of this cabal would indicate that its activities are at great odds with its stated mission and not in the benefit of the Afro-Caribbean community. Having witnessed an attempt at membership of a couple black-owned businesses, it is hardly a surprise that the leadership of this membership entity has emerged as non-black guardians of institutions that uniformly bear a striking similarity to historic hostility to black people, an image of a post-slavery Caribbean still shackled by the remnants of our lighter-skinned African avoidant prejudice and tightly held heritage monopolistic business practices." These are conscious African people who have said enough is enough. We can't continue to sit back and watch the rich get richer and richer and the poor get poorer and poorer, especially while the rich who are getting richer and being helped to get richer are white and Syrian, but the poor who are getting poorer are black and African. The letter continues saying, "The organization frankly bears an overwhelming resemblance to the old country club, now disguised as a modern business group. The CPSO are the hereditary products of our sordid experience of slavery in the Caribbean and its generational consequences. They say we are now being confronted in hostile competition by the very vestiges of our slavery. It is clearly mind-boggling. The CPSO are demonstrating the usual arrogance of assumed divine leadership and control that is inherited from their ancestral greed and theft. We can expect no less than this deceptive, manipulative behavior from them." That is from a group of African businessmen in Trinidad and Tobago with multiple signatories. That letter is being circulated, getting even more signatories to express concern from the African population as to why there are all of these obstacles against the establishment of the African Bank or the AFRIEXIMBANK. Beloved family, we have to stay conscious, we have to stay focused, we have to stay dedicated and committed to our cause, to our struggle. We cannot sit back and fall asleep or be happy with crumbs that fall off the table.